So last night was the third Democratic debate. It was on ABC. And what I want to do with you guys is run through, this segment will just be for the losers. Then after this, we'll do a segment on the winners, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you like a whole bunch of different specific segments that caught my eye, and there were many. There were many viral moments that happened last night, including, the best one is just Joe Biden rambling incoherently, and he brings up record players to a question about, like, racism and the legacy of slavery. It was crazy. But anyway, I digress from that. The losers. Who were the losers? Well, first and foremost, ABC. ABC was beyond abysmal. They probably were the worst of all the debates so far, and that's hard because all of them sucked. So everything was framed from a right-wing perspective, and they acted like, when it comes to war, that like the generals are just like these neutral, objective arbiters of truth, and like, what did the generals tell you? You shouldn't get out of Afghanistan. What then? Yeah. And it was just terrible across the board. Jorge Ramos asked Bernie Sanders, like, hey man, what's the difference between you and Maduro? I seriously cannot put into words sufficiently just how objectively terrible ABC did. They should be ashamed of themselves. You could put together a Democratic debate with myself and all the other lefty YouTubers, and we would have done way better than they did. Okay, so they're the first loser, and honestly probably the biggest loser. The second biggest loser, do I even need to say it? It's just so obvious. Joe Biden. He's a mess, man. It's embarrassing. It's sad. It's scary, honestly. He shouldn't be running for president. He shouldn't. He should wrap it up and go rest somewhere, watch Murder, She Wrote all day, because he's just out of it. He's so out of it. And at this point, I kind of feel bad for him. But then again, he's still the front runner, and people need to know that he's not fit. And you guys know me. I basically never use those kinds of arguments like, oh, he's not fit. What does that mean? Let's talk about policy. Policy is like the most important thing. But when it comes to Joe Biden, no, his mental fitness actually is a serious question. And I take no joy in saying that, but it's true. He got destroyed by everybody on stage. Julian Castro just utterly obliterated him. Biden tried to take on Bernie and Warren on Medicare for All. Big mistake. Incoherent when he gets cornered. You know what he did? He was like, we're America. What? They're hitting you with specific points on healthcare, and his reply is like, we're America. And Bernie's like, and the American people don't want to pay double what other developed countries pay for healthcare. What are you talking about? Just so sad. Second biggest loser, Klobuchar. Nobody knows why she's running. She doesn't even know why she's running. She's honestly stuck in the year 1992, and it's sad. It's so sad. Because she's doing the whole, like, I'm not the loudest voice on the stage, but we already have the loudest voice on the White House. I'm going to represent the middle. It's like, this vapid, vacuous, stand-for-nothing, centrist-style politics is just terrible. It's just so bad. Another big loser, in my opinion, was Cory Booker. He just had nothing that stood out to me throughout the night. He also strikes me as one of those people who just can't say what he's trying to say. He just drags it out and puts you to sleep. Then I have Kamala. Kamala was another giant loser because, again, she came across to me as just really, really rehearsed. And like she tried to land her zingers, but it doesn't come across as sincere when it looks like you've been waiting to deliver it and like you're kind of waiting for that crowd reaction when you lay it out. And that was Kamala all day long. I mean, she had one point where she said to Biden, when Biden questioned the constitutionality of just taking people's guns, he was like, you can't do that constitutionally. And she like paused and was like, well, what I say to that is, yes, we can. You get it? Because it was you and Obama. That was your thing. You gotta stop planning out these terrible lines. Another loser, in my opinion, Buttigieg. You know, I feel like the more he's out there, he was able to kind of keep it together in the sense that he appears to be the best of the centrist options, which isn't saying much. It's like being the tallest kid in kindergarten. But like now it appears like his shtick is just getting old and stale, and it's transparent. And he actually tried to take on Bernie at a few points because I guess his advisors thought, we got to make a splash here, so let's do it. And it fell so flat, and he's so smarmy, and some of the things he says, like he was arguing against Medicare for All in an incredibly disingenuous way, sticking to the argument of like, but you don't trust the American people because you're taking away their choice. Oh, your choice. Yes. The choice humpers are so obnoxious because, again, it's just a category error, man. You would find it ridiculous if somebody was like, you know, saying, let's privatize the fire department and you should have a choice. You should have a choice of what kind of fire insurance you want and which fire department comes to put out your fire. You'd be like, what? No, when it's on fire, just put it out. What are you fucking talking about? That's the way it works for a reason. Well, it's the same thing with healthcare. You know how it should work? Sick help. Sick help. You know how it should work? I want to go to the doctor. I'm going to go to the doctor. What he's saying is like, people should have the option to be ripped off by an unnecessary, rapacious, mafia-like middleman. And it's so stupid. I'm sorry. But anyway, and the final loser, in my opinion, and some people disagree with me on this, but I'll argue on this one till I'm blue in the face, son. Beto. I think Beto was bad. It's weird because he tries to like out-left people on the exact issues where out-lefting them is not necessarily a political winner. So stop and reflect on that for a second, because that's a really important point. If you want to win not just a primary, but a general, you got to go all in on the economic populism, okay? You got to go over the top with that stuff because that's the stuff where the polls already show people overwhelmingly agree with us. So if you double down on that and triple down on that and take no prisoners and outflank everybody on the left on economic stuff, you're giving yourself the best chance to win. Beto is milquetoast on all that stuff, of course, but then where he tries to out-left everybody is stuff like guns, and last night he was just flat out saying like, yeah, I'm going to come take your guns. Well, wait, what? Is that even constitutional? I don't even think that's constitutional. You can't just like take them. You know, what are you talking about? You can't do that. Now, if you want to have a discussion about like a voluntary buyback thing, sure, that's a reasonable discussion to have, and that'd be totally constitutional. But you just take them and do it, I guess, through the executive branch only, and do a mandatory buyback, which is like literally confiscation. That's not something that's overwhelmingly popular. Don't get me wrong. Universal background checks, over 90% popular. Yes, people actually lean, a majority are in favor of banning assault weapons, a majority are in favor of banning high-capacity magazines. All that's perfectly reasonable. But he flat out argued not for any of those positions, for gun confiscation, mandatory. So in other words, he's like, I will become that like caricature of a lefty that the right-wingers have. Now, again, you might agree with him on that policy. I don't think I do. I really, I think that goes a little too far. But whether or not you agree with him is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, there's no polling that indicates that that's an overwhelmingly popular position. Now, you could say, hey, man, but he actually believes that as a matter of principle, and that's why he's arguing for it, so credit him for that. Maybe. That might be true. And in which case, I would say, okay, good, because he's at least arguing for something he really cares about. But I have a bad feeling it's not even necessarily that. It's that he knows he has to make a splash because he's doing terrible in the polls. So he needs to find a way to try to outflank everybody and make a name for himself and get headlines. And this is the issue that he picked. And he landed on gun confiscation. And so I don't know if it's more a sincere belief or it's just this is his strategy to try to get back in the race. I lean in favor of the latter. I think it's more of a strategy for him to get back in the race. And it's just one of those issues where you're not necessarily going to win by outflanking everybody on this issue because it's not necessarily a popular one. Sorry. So, and again, I know some people disagree with me on the Beto one, but I don't think he did well. I really don't. So those are all the losers. The biggest loser, again, is ABC. And then the second biggest loser is Biden. And then everybody else is just kind of tied and, in the wilderness here. So there you have it. Now, will this Will my commentary be reflected in the polls? Well, that's yet to be seen. I don't know how this will land. Perhaps some of the people who I think did poorly, other people think they did well. But, again, if that is true, it will reflect over time in the polling, but that's my breakdown of it nonetheless.